Sunday Gold is a game that immediately had my attention. A point and click adventure akin to Disco Elysium, with combat from Persona and a setting straight out of a Guy Ritchie movie, topped with an awesome art style. As a big fan of all of these, I knew I needed to play the game. But what exactly is Sunday Gold, and did it meet my expectations? From the get-go, I should say that I am a massive fan of Disco Elysium and Persona 5. This isn't going to influence my opinion of the game, but it's worth noting that I was basically guaranteed to enjoy the gameplay and combat of Sunday Gold. However, this style of gameplay may not be for everyone. Sunday Gold released on the 13th of September 2022 and is available only for PC. Developed by BKOM Studios and published by Team 17, Sunday Gold has us follow the story of three main characters: Frank Barber, Sally Wheeler and Gavin Dorsey. Frank is essentially the main character of the game and acts as the leader of our ragtag gang. Frank meets Sally in their local, and Sally informs Frank that she has a job lined up for them. Enter Gavin, disgruntled ex-employee of Hogan Industries. Gavin explains that Kenny Hogan, the famous billionaire of our dishevelled London, is not as squeaky clean as people think he is. The businessman is one of the driving forces behind the dog racing scene of London. But these dogs are different. Reanimated corpses of dead dogs, cybernetically enhanced and pumped full of chemicals and made to race. Through environmental storytelling, we learn that these races are also extremely violent and are slowly becoming more violent as time passes. Gavin tells us that if we can help him sneak into Hogan Labs, he can download data that he can sell to the highest bidder, which will take Hogan down. Evidence of shady under the table deals, as well as an apparent underground lab where some disturbing human experimentation is taking place. Cue a heist, things being deeper than expected, and what we are left with is a wild ride of a story. The gameplay of said story is excellent, if not frustrating at times. Each chapter, of which there are 3, consists of a heist similar to the castles of Persona 5. You have a central objective, however there are obstacles in the way of this said objective. These use up your character's AP, or action points. Once you use up their AP, unless you can restore it with an item or a skill, they are unable to carry out most tasks until you end your turn. You may still be able to examine things, but tasks such as searching or hacking will not be doable. Ending your turn begins the enemy's turn. In this time, enemies may enter the room you're in, initiating combat. Or you may get lucky and not have to face any enemies. This is determined by the alarm level of the chapter. Doing things to attract attention increases the alarm, making guards more likely to search for you, leading to more fights. While fighting in Sunday Gold can be good, as it grants XP and thus increases your character's level, here enters my first frustration with the game. AP is also used in combat for both simple attacks and skills. You begin combat with your current amount of AP, in this case full as you just completed your turn. But for some reason, when the combat is over, you come out of combat with the amount of AP you ended the fight with, meaning it is possible to end your turn, return to max AP, and come out of combat with only 3 AP. This will limit what the character can do, and as we'll discuss shortly, each character has a specialised task you may need them to do. This leads to you ending your turn again sooner than you had planned, and leads combat to becoming as much of a puzzle as it is a fight. While some may view this added puzzle mechanic as a positive for the game, I found it to become tiresome over time. It took away from the joy of combat, and really dampened my experience of the game. During your turn, there will be a magnitude of things for you to do. You can search drawers, examine bulletin boards, and take in the world around you. I highly suggest that you do this, and maybe even have a way of taking notes while playing. Sunday Gold is very akin to the old style point and click games, in which the puzzles are complex on the surface level, but in reality, they require the player to be remembering small details within the environment they would normally gloss over. The puzzles can be frustrating, particularly in the final chapter of the game, especially if you miss those small details. But solving that puzzle you have been stuck on does provide a great sense of achievement. Each character has their own class in a way, which relates to what damage they do and the actions they can carry out during your turn. Gavin is the tech guy and capable of hacking computers. This is done via a minigame in which you must guess a 4-digit code. The game will tell you how many numbers are in the right place, how many are in the wrong place, and how many are right but in the wrong place. Now this minigame is not particularly intuitive and may take some practice to fully understand. Sally is capable of brute force tasks such as moving heavy objects or breaking open panels. This is again a minigame, but in this one you're using the mouse buttons, or the A and D keys, to manoeuvre an arrow into a zone and keep it there until a meter fills. This must be done multiple times depending on the difficulty. Frank is the lockpicker, but the team didn't go for the standard Bethesda lockpick minigame we normally expect. This minigame involves finding the sweet spot for each ring of the lock and selecting when the block passes into the sweet spot. And honestly, I think I prefer this style of lockpicking to the style we've become accustomed to. In terms of the combat, as I mentioned, each attack or skill uses AP. Some attacks will even take multiple turns to charge, and the game will show you in the turn order when this attack will be unleashed. When the game says turns, it doesn't mean a full turn. Instead it means each character's turn, so the visual showing of where the attack will happen is very handy. Each of the characters have a set of skills. Gavin is melee and tech based, Frank is all about damage and team morale, and Sally is physical and the team's healer. Enemies have weaknesses and resistances which you can exploit to deal more damage to the enemy. They also have armour which is chipped away with attacks. Once the armour is broken, you have a few turns where the enemy is staggered and you can attack freely. After this armour resets, they are back to attacking. Combat in Sunday Gold is very standard as a whole, but the smaller mechanics of it are what make it so fun. Combat grants you XP, which levels up your characters. From here there are some minor RPG mechanics. You can choose which skills to improve, but that is where it stops. Sunday Gold does not offer any stats for defense and the like, but I preferred that in this instance. The game does feature gear, which you can equip to characters to change their damage type, give them buffs such as damage resistance, or even increase the potency of their skills. That is where the RPG mechanics of Sunday Gold stop though, but given that the game is quite short by today's standards, I feel that an in-depth RPG system would have bogged down the experience. While we are discussing menus, I do have to mention another gripe I have with the game. When in the menu, each character has their own inventory. This means that if Frank picks up a keycard, only Frank has the keycard, meaning only Frank can use it. So if Frank has no AP and scanning the keycard uses AP, you have to open the inventory, go to Frank, click the keycard, move that item to a character with AP, come out of the menu and use the keycard. The problem is the menu selects the character you was on when you left the menu. Many a time I would enter the menu and exit on Gavin, then click a task and Gavin would carry it out. But I wanted someone else to do it because Gavin was low on AP and I needed him to hack a terminal because only he can. So then I would have to use the rest of my AP, end turn, risk combat and then proceed to hack the terminal. This happened far more than I wish I could say it did, but is something that a simple patch could well solve. It did frustrate me when this happened, but much like ending combat with high AP for my turn, this was something I learnt to accommodate. Sunday Gold's audio does what every good game's audio should. Perfectly match the ambience of the game and the moment, but not take attention away from the dialogue or what is happening. It adds to the experience of the game, rather than being the experience. Visually this game is amazing. I love the art style of Sunday Gold. It has this hand-drawn comic book style to it that just mesmerised me. The depiction of a gritty, decrepit London is so well done and amplified by the visual style of the game. My playthrough of Sunday Gold took me about 18 hours. This is mainly because the final boss fight is the one that I struggled with, but the ending of the game felt very flat to me. It ends very abruptly and left me sitting there going, wait, is that it? While the landing didn't stick for me, I honestly enjoyed my time with Sunday Gold. The gameplay is fun, the story is, for the most part, great, and the characters are, well, full of character. This is an easy contender for my personal game of the year, and one that you should definitely try for yourself.